Welcome to Naveen Tech Hub. In this video, we are going to understand AWS S3 Lifecycle Rules in a very simple and practical way. If you're storing files in Amazon S3, your storage cost can slowly increase over time, especially when old logs, backups, reports, and temporary files keep staying in the bucket forever. S3 Lifecycle Rules help us automate storage cleanup and cost optimization. Instead of manually moving or deleting old files, we can tell S3, after 30 days, move this file to a cheaper storage class. After 180 days, archive it. And after 1 year, delete it automatically. By the end of this video, you will understand how lifecycle rules work, where they are useful in real projects, and how they help production systems save money. An S3 lifecycle rule is like an automatic schedule for your files. It tells Amazon S3 what should happen to objects after a certain number of days. For example, imagine your application uploads log files every day. These logs are useful for the first few weeks, but after 3 or 6 months, you may rarely open them. Keeping all logs in S3 standard forever is not cost-effective. With lifecycle rules, you can automatically move older files into cheaper storage classes or delete them after a fixed time. The best part is that lifecycle rules run once per day in the background, and you do not need to write custom scripts or schedule Lambda jobs for basic cleanup. You can configure them from the Management tab of your S3 bucket. Cost-saving tip. Lifecycle rules are one of the easiest ways to reduce storage cost without changing your application code. The first step is deciding which files the lifecycle rule should apply to. You have two main options. You can apply the rule to all objects in the bucket, or you can limit it using filters. In real projects, filtering is very important. For example, your bucket may contain user profile images, application logs, invoices, and backup files. You may not want the same lifecycle rule for everything. Logs can be deleted after 90 days, but invoices may need to be stored for 7 years. That is where prefixes and tags help. A prefix is like a folder path, such as logs / backup / report / or temp /. You can create a lifecycle rule only for logs / and leave other files untouched. Production tip. Always use clear folder naming in S3. Good prefixes make lifecycle management much easier. After selecting the scope, the next step is choosing the action. S3 gives us multiple lifecycle actions. The first action is transition current versions. This means the active file is moved to another storage class, like standard IA or Glacier. The second action is transition non-current versions, which is useful when versioning is enabled. If a file is replaced, the older version can be moved to cheaper storage. You can also expire current versions, meaning S3 deletes files after a certain number of days. And you can delete non-current versions, which permanently removes old versions. Real-life example. In a banking or healthcare application, you may keep current documents available, but older versions can be archived. In a log processing system, logs older than 365 days can be automatically deleted. Cost-saving tip. Versioned buckets can become expensive if old versions are never cleaned up. Always review non-current version rules. Now we decide when the file should move to a cheaper storage class. This is controlled by days after object creation. For example, if we set 30 days, then S3 waits until the object is 30 days old, and then moves it automatically. This is very useful for production systems where data value changes over time. Recently uploaded data is usually accessed more often. Older data is usually accessed less. So we can keep new files in S3 standard and move old files to cheaper tiers. But there are two important points to remember. First, transitions have request charges. Second, very small objects under 128 kilobytes do not transition by default in many lifecycle scenarios. Cost-saving tip, do not blindly transition millions of tiny files. Sometimes the request cost can reduce the savings. Always check object size and access pattern. Before creating a lifecycle rule, we need to understand the storage class options. S3 standard IA is good when you access the file maybe once a month, but still need millisecond access. For example, monthly reports, older invoices, or backup snapshots. S3 intelligent tiering is useful when you do not know the access pattern. AWS automatically moves objects between access tiers based on usage. This is good for unpredictable workloads. One zone IA is cheaper, but stores data in a single availability zone. Use it only for data that can be recreated, like resized images, cache outputs, or temporary processed files. Glacier Instant Retrieval is good for archive data that may be accessed once a quarter but still needs fast retrieval. Glacier Flexible Retrieval is for archives accessed rarely, maybe once a year. Retrieval is slower, but storage cost is lower. Glacier Deep Archive is the cheapest option, mainly for long-term retention, compliance, and data that is rarely accessed. Production tip: choose storage class based on access frequency, retrieval time, and business importance. One powerful feature of S3 Lifecycle Rules is that we can chain multiple transitions. This means the file can become cheaper to store as it gets older. For example, on day 0, the file is uploaded into S3 Standard. After 30 days, it moves to Standard IA. After 60 days, it moves to Glacier Flexible Retrieval. After 180 days, it moves to Deep Archive. This is similar to how companies handle data in real life. New data needs fast access. Older data is still important, but not used every day. Very old data may only be needed for audit, compliance, or rare investigation. Real-life example: application logs can stay in Standard for 30 days for debugging, then move to Glacier for long-term troubleshooting. After 1 or 2 years, they can be deleted if compliance allows. Cost-saving tip: build lifecycle paths based on business value over time. The final stage of a lifecycle rule is expiration. Expiration means S3 automatically deletes objects once they reach a certain age. This is very useful for logs, temporary uploads, old exports, test files, and short-term backups. For example, if your application creates daily export files for users, you may not need to keep them forever. You can delete them after 30 or 90 days. If a bucket has versioning enabled, expiration behaves slightly differently. Instead of immediately removing the file, S3 may add a delete marker. That means the current version looks deleted, but older versions may still exist unless you also clean up non-current versions. Production tip: for versioned buckets, configure both current object expiration and non-current version expiration. Otherwise, storage cost may continue growing. Let us understand one file's complete journey. On day 0, the object is uploaded into the bucket. For the first 30 days, it stays in a high-performance storage class because recent files are more likely to be accessed. On day 30, it moves to Standard IA, which is cheaper for infrequently accessed data. On day 60, it moves to Glacier Flexible Retrieval, where storage cost is lower, but retrieval may take more time. Finally, on day 365, the object expires and is deleted. This is a very common pattern in production. It works well for logs, audit reports, backups, generated files, and system exports. Cost-saving tip: do not keep everything in S3 Standard forever. Match the storage class to how often the file is actually used. Now let us look at replication rules. Replication is different from lifecycle. Lifecycle moves or deletes objects over time. Replication copies objects from one bucket to another. This is useful for backups, disaster recovery, compliance, and multi-region availability. For example, if your main bucket is in one AWS region, you can replicate objects to another region for business continuity. In production, replication is used when data must be protected from accidental deletion, regional outages, or compliance risks. You can choose an IAM role, use AWS KMS encryption, select a destination bucket, and even choose a destination storage class. Cost-saving tip: replication improves durability and recovery, but it also increases storage cost because you're storing another copy. Replicate only the data that truly needs backup or multi-region protection. One important detail about replication is that, by default, it usually applies to new objects after the replication rule is enabled. Existing files already present in the bucket are not automatically copied unless you run a one-time batch operation. For example, if you have 5 years of files already in a bucket and you enable replication today, new files may start replicating, but old files may remain only in the source bucket. To copy existing objects, you can use S3 batch operations. This runs a one-time job to replicate existing files. Production tip: during migration or disaster recovery setup, always ask, do we need to replicate only new data or both old and new data? Cost-saving tip: batch replication has extra charges. Estimate the number of objects and data volume before running it. S3 inventory helps you see what is inside your bucket at scale. Instead of manually listing millions or billions of objects, S3 can generate a scheduled report. This report can include object names, size, storage class, encryption status, replication status, and other metadata. It can run daily or weekly, and it can export in formats like CSV, ORC, or Parquet. Real-life use case. Imagine your company has a large data lake. You want to know how much data is in Standard, how much is in Glacier, and which objects are missing encryption. S3 inventory gives you this visibility. Cost-saving tip: use inventory reports to identify old data, large objects, unoptimized storage classes, and cleanup opportunities. S3 Files allows AWS compute resources to connect to S3 in a file system-like way. The idea is to make S3 easier to use for workloads that expect files and folders. In simple terms, instead of only using API calls, your application or compute resource can read and write files more naturally. This can help when applications are moving from traditional file systems into cloud storage. Real-life example: a data processing application may need to read input files and write output files directly. A mounted file system experience can make integration easier. Production tip: before using any file system style access pattern with S3, understand performance needs, consistency expectations, and cost behavior. Cost-saving tip: use S3-backed storage when you want object storage economics, but avoid unnecessary high-performance file systems when your workload does not need them. To create an S3 Files file system, you point it to a bucket or a specific prefix. You also choose the VPC where your compute resources will connect. One important prerequisite is bucket versioning. Versioning must be turned on before the file system can be created. Versioning protects previous versions of files, but it can also increase storage usage if old versions are not cleaned up. Production tip: whenever you enable versioning, also think about lifecycle rules for non-current versions. Cost-saving tip: versioning is powerful, but without cleanup rules, old file versions can silently increase your monthly bill. After versioning is enabled, AWS creates mount targets. These are network endpoints that compute resources use to connect to the file system. Common compute options include EC2 instances, Lambda functions, and ECS tasks. In a production setup, this means different services can access shared data through a common storage layer. Real-life example: an ECS task can write processed files, an EC2 job can analyze them, and another service can read them later. Production tip: make sure networking, security groups, IAM permissions, and encryption settings are properly configured. Cost-saving tip: only mount storage where needed. Avoid giving every workload access if only one service actually uses the data. WSS is also expanding S3 beyond regular file storage. Two interesting bucket types are table buckets and vector buckets. Table buckets are designed for structured, analytics-ready data. This can help when you want to query data using tools like Athena or use it with machine learning workflows. Vector buckets are useful for AI applications. They are designed for vector embeddings, which are numerical representations used in similarity search, recommendation systems, and generative AI applications. Real-life example: for a Gen AI application, you may store embeddings of documents and search for similar content. For analytics, you may store structured data and query it efficiently. Production tip: choose bucket type based on workload. Regular object storage, analytics tables, and vector search have different access patterns. Cost-saving tip: do not force every workload into one storage pattern. The right bucket type can reduce complexity and cost. Sometimes we need to access S3 outside the AWS console, for example, from a desktop tool, command line, automation script, or application. For programmatic access, we use IAM access keys. An access key is like a username and password for programs. It includes an access key ID and a secret access key. The secret key is shown only once, so you must copy and store it securely. Security tip: never hard-code access keys in code, GitHub, or shared documents. Use IAM roles whenever possible, especially for EC2, Lambda, and ECS. Production tip: give only the permissions needed. For example, if a tool only needs read access to one bucket, do not give full S3 admin access. Cost-saving tip: secure access prevents accidental deletion, unwanted replication, and unexpected storage growth. Tools like S3 Browser allow users to manage S3 buckets from a desktop interface. This can be helpful for beginners because it feels like browsing folders and files. You can sign in using access keys, upload and download files, manage lifecycle settings, view encryption, and work with bucket options from menus. Real-life use case: a support team may need to upload customer reports, or an operations team may need to verify files in a bucket without using command line tools. Production tip: desktop tools are convenient, but access should be controlled carefully. Use separate IAM users or roles with limited permissions. Cost-saving tip: use tools to inspect storage and clean up unnecessary files, but avoid accidental large uploads or duplicate copies. For more advanced users, you can mount S3 files manually from an EC2 instance using SSH. This is useful when you want direct command line control. The basic flow is lock down your key file using chmod 400, SSH into the EC2 instance, install the required mount helper, create a local mount folder, and then mount the file system. Beginner-friendly explanation: mounting means you are making remote storage appear like a local folder on the server. Once mounted, your application can interact with it using normal file paths. Production tip: always secure your SSH key, restrict inbound access, and use IAM permissions carefully. Cost-saving tip: before mounting, confirm that this approach is needed. For simple upload and download use cases, direct S3 API or AWS CLI may be cheaper and simpler. After mounting, we should verify that everything is working. In the console, the file system should show as available. On the EC2 instance, we can run a command like ls on the mounted folder. If the bucket's files appear in the mount path, the connection is working. Production tip: always test with a small file first. Upload, read, update, and delete based on your actual use case. Also test permissions, because sometimes mounting works, but the application may not have access to specific operations. Cost-saving tip: testing early prevents production mistakes, failed jobs, duplicate processing, and unnecessary troubleshooting time. Let us quickly recap the 5 most important points. First, lifecycle rules run automatically once per day in the background. Second, you can apply a rule to the whole bucket, or filter using prefixes, tags, or object size. Third, transitions help move files to cheaper storage classes over time. Fourth, expiration helps delete old files automatically. Fifth, always watch for small object behavior and transition request charges. The main idea is simple. Not all data has the same value forever. Fresh data usually needs fast access. Older data can move to cheaper storage. Very old or temporary data can be deleted if business rules allow it. Production tip: lifecycle rules should be part of every serious S3 cost optimization strategy. That's it for this beginner-friendly walkthrough of AWS S3 Lifecycle Rules. If you are working with S3 in real projects, start by checking your old logs, backups, exports, temporary files, and versioned objects. These are usually the easiest places to save cost. Try creating one simple lifecycle rule first, maybe for a logs folder, and test how it works. Once you are comfortable, you can build a full cost-saving path using multiple transitions and expirations. If this video helped you understand S3 storage cost optimization, please like, share, and subscribe to Naveen Tech Hub for more beginner-friendly AWS, cloud, data engineering, and coding tutorials.